hey, I've never really done this before, so we'll see how it goes. I think I've attempted it once. I don't know. But I'm gonna try to vlog over the next couple of days because I need an excuse to really focus some dedicated reading time on some romances. I started Lunar Love by Jessen last night. As you can see, I'm about 7% in, and it is also due back to the library in the next day. Now, normally I would just turn the Wi-Fi off and we'd be good, but I've noticed on Kobo that that's not really an option, so I'm kind of racing against the clock here. I do know, I'm pretty sure from past experience, that it will start counting down the hours a little bit more, so I think I still have like a full day, and I got this 7% read in the bath last night, I'm pretty sure, so I think we're gonna be okay. I'm really gonna push. So far in this, we've met our protagonist, Olivia. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did have to look up her name because it is told through first person, and it just hasn't really stuck yet. So she is inheriting her grandmother's matchmaking business based on traditional Chinese matchmaking. I left her at the party where that was going to be announced, but she has just met this guy at her like go-to bakery who, based on the blurb, I assume is going to be our love interest. Well, I assume he's going to be our love interest based on romance novel beats, but based on the blurb, he is also going to be her rival. So I will be interested to see how this is going to play out. So far, it's reading really smoothly. I have a bunch of books, both physical, both owned from the library, as well as digital owned and from the library, that I'm really hoping to get through as much as I possibly can in the next 4 days. Where my focus is going to be is a little up in the air. I also have to be job hunting the next couple of days, and that is kind of a full-time job in and of itself. So my plan for today is to drink my coffee. Yes, it's a little later in the day than I usually do, but here we are. Drink my coffee, read my book, make lunch, job hunt, come back to my book, lather, rinse, repeat for the next couple of days, or at least tomorrow since it's still a weekday. Maybe tomorrow I will get out and work from like a cafe at some point. I can't promise that I'll bring you along with me for that if it does happen, because I'm very conscious of other people's space and respecting their privacy. And a lot of the places that I frequent are pretty small, and it's very obvious if you have a camera out, but we'll see. For today, it's rainy. I will probably be in this apartment. I have lit my rainy day reads candle. I'm gonna curl up on the couch with some coffee and this book and just take it one moment at a time. So I guess with that, I'm gonna go pour my coffee and get going. Friends, we're gonna see how this goes because I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't feel very interesting right now, and I'm definitely not very aesthetic, but here we are nonetheless. So I'm gonna read regardless. Okay, so I have noticed I'm starting chapter 3 here, and there is a horse, and I believe, if I remember correctly, and if I can remember how to do the chapters here, now let's look at chapter 2. Yeah, there's a rat, I assume. So the headings seem to be following the Chinese zodiac, which is pretty cool. And I admittedly don't know much about the zodiac. I believe I'm year of the horse since I was born in 1990. I don't know if this coffee... That's still pretty hot, but we're gonna hold it and wait. This could be dicey, but we're living on the edge. That shows you exactly how exciting I am. Okay, so I got to the part where the rival app is revealed, which also is operating around the Chinese zodiac, and our protagonist Olivia is kind of balking at this idea that it is matching her with all of these signs that she doesn't consider compatible, that it's not taking into account like when exactly she was born, all of these things. But I can't get over the fact that, one, it is exploring kind of the limitations of online dating, and online dating is its own wasteland, but it is presenting these matches coming in with the corresponding sound for their sign, and I can't imagine that not being annoying. Like, I have my phone constantly on silent. I do not want to hear noise unless I'm watching a video, and I definitely don't want to hear a rooster crowing at me when I get a match. So I am questioning the internal valuation of this app in this fictional world, because it does not sound like something I would be interested in, because it feels like the noises would be annoying, but maybe that is the millennial in me. Though, Gen Z, have you ever kept your phones on, like with the ringer on? Because I very clearly remember like a point in my life, I mean, I couldn't tell you when, so maybe not clearly, where the ringer went off and it never went back on. So have you ever had a point where the ringer was on? Because at this point I can't imagine it, so I don't know. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, I got distracted. I am now on chapter 6 and it is time to make lunch. So I am like 21% through according to my handy dandy little tracker up here, which is one of my favorite Kobo features. I have about 4.5 hours left to go, which I can absolutely do in a day. I just need to get my stuff together. But for now, it's lunch, and then I need to work on some job applications, which I think is part of what is distracting me, this kind of unknown. So I'm gonna focus on that for a bit, and then I will come back and keep reading. Okay, there's been a time jump. It's the next day. There's been a costume change, and I finished Lunar Love. So we're officially at 1 book completed, which is exciting. Unfortunately, I didn't like the book. And I feel really bad saying that because I really wanted to like the book. And it's interesting because I kind of had the same problems with this book that I had with Makeup Breakup by Lily Minnan, which was another kind of like enemies to lovers structured around the conceit of these competing apps. And both struggled for me personally with one, the fact that they were only told through one first person point of view, because I don't think either protagonist was a point of view we should have been in the whole time. I admittedly really struggled with Olivia in Lunar Love. She was very reactionary and it didn't feel connected to anything. I think Jessen tried to build that up later with like her strict adherence to tradition kind of being rooted in both a bad relationship for her and a bad match that she had made for a good friend, and feeling that that was because she had made a more non-traditional match or match to people that according to the Zodiac were not compatible. But I think that that came a little too late, and we started off with her basically lying to Bennett in terms of like gaming the system of his app to like get on this date with him, which already kind of put me on edge because one, it's like perfectly primed for secondhand embarrassment that I am very susceptible to, and two, it is lying, which I'm not saying people never lie, but we're starting out this relationship based on this lie that's very intentional rather than circumstantial, if that makes sense. And then once we got to these settings, all she would do was like not very subtly grill him about his app. So I was honestly shocked that she was shocked that he caught on to this at all. And then having the audacity, and that may be a strong word, but whatever, it feels right in this moment, to be mad at him potentially for lying to her when she was lying to him, and then not grappling with the hypocrisy of that within her own subconscious. Like, I would be fine with it if we had something in her head that was like, I recognize that this is kind of irrational. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I so angry at him when I am clearly doing the same thing? But she didn't really have much self-awareness, and we as readers didn't really have much awareness of her outside of this job that we didn't really know all of that much about at the end of the day, outside of kind of the bare bones of it, because all of her emotions kind of related to this job were wrapped up in both her fear of losing it and the fear of failure in terms of just taking over this business, and also the antagonism that she had with Bennett and this new app. And I also struggled because for me, and granted, I'm not a business owner, I could immediately kind of see that they were targeting different markets, and yes, it may be encroaching on the customer base a little bit, but not to the full breadth. Like, there should have been a little bit of imagination there, as well as the potential for partnership. Honestly, there was some potential there for sure. And additionally, in terms of the dating app itself, dating apps have been around for a second at this point, so kind of considering a dating app a market disruptor in the way that this book was kind of asking us to was a hard leap for me to make. Like, I know it kind of tried to position what made this app different, but I don't think it really acknowledged the kind of current moment we're sitting in the way it kind of could have, because Olivia was really focused on this idea that he was going to take business away from her. But from where I've been sitting, I've been seeing a lot of frustration with dating apps in the current moment, and recognizing the gamification of it, recognizing that it's so hard to form real connections. And granted, I'm saying this and I have multiple friends who have made lasting partnerships off of dating apps, but there's a wide variety of experience. I personally haven't had much luck on the apps, and I think that is related to how I do or do not utilize those apps. And so I immediately saw the value in this more personal business, even if I personally probably wouldn't pay for something like that. Granted, any extras aren't in the budget right now, but it felt like there was a little lack of imagination. And so all of the conflict was kind of predicated on this faulty premise to me. And then the kind of maneuvering of that conflict didn't read as sexual tension to me either. I had a lot of trouble kind of believing in the couple and rooting for the couple because I didn't really feel like I knew them as people. I knew them kind of within the bounds of these jobs, but anything I learned about them and a lot of their bonding felt a little forced, partly because a lot of their conversations came out of like this blunt interrogation from Lydia. Now, I will say that the second half was a little bit more enjoyable because it softened up a little bit. We did have a kind of bet going on in this where they kind of bet the other that they could find them a match through their own methods, and there were real stakes to that. And then the third act conflict kind of lost me again because it kind of unsurprisingly came out of Olivia's emotional constipation. And then Bennett makes a gesture of sorts, and in my mind, Olivia was the one who owed him a gesture. And there was a moment that I think was supposed to feel like a reciprocal gesture from her, but for me personally, it just didn't feel like enough. I don't know, I'm bummed. Again, I really, really wanted to like this one. That being said, if you did like Makeup Breakup by Lily Minnon, I think that this would be right up your alley. And also it is a closed door romance if that is something that you've been looking for, so that may be of interest, but unfortunately it just didn't work for me. But with that being said, there are more romances to tackle, so what's next? I think next I am going to read Love Radio by Ebony Ladelle. This is a young adult romance, and it has like a radio plot line. I think one of the characters has a radio advice segment. I just saw radio and got Radio Free Roscoe vibes, I'm not gonna lie to you, even though I know this isn't like an underground radio station, it's very different, but I think it'll be fun, so I'm going to read this next. And then I really do need to get out of this apartment today, though I am struggling and am already contemplating a nap, even though I haven't finished my coffee. It's something that I'll figure out, but if I do get out, whether to work somewhere else or go to the grocery store or what have you, I started a new audiobook last night. I started By the Book by Jasmine Guillory on Hoopla, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's the kind of adult Disney fairy tale romance retellings where each book is being given to a different author. I know we have this one. I know we have If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. So this is the first in the series I'm reading, and it is the Beauty and the Beast book. So that is what I'm going to be tackling today. Hopefully we'll get both of them finished because I would love to continue working through my stack. Additionally, HarperCollins may have reached a tentative agreement. There is an offer on the table. I have not heard from the union whether this means that we can start reviewing yet again or not. But I again have a lot of Avon romances. I don't know if those can be added to the mix or not. I don't know if we'll have time, but there is a Beverly Jenkins, a Joanna Shoup, and Olivia Dade right off the top of my head that I have been eagerly anticipating, so I would love to be able to get to those, but we'll see. For the record, I will absolutely not be getting to all of those this weekend regardless, so I will report back later and let you know where we're sitting and may or may not disclose whether I actually took a nap. But as my friends would tell you, you should probably put your money on the took a nap option. Anyway, I will check back in later and we'll see where we're sitting. Okay, it's now like mid-afternoon and I'm here to tell on myself in that, one, I guess I took a nap, kind of. I didn't really fall asleep. I don't know if it counts. But two, I haven't read anything. I think I listened to a little bit of the audiobook, but I read like maybe 2 or 3 pages of my actual book, and I don't know if it is a win or a loss because I did get a couple of job applications completed, so I'm gonna count that as a win. I think we're okay, but I really should get out of this apartment, so I think I'm gonna go take a walk. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna figure something out. But as of this moment, I don't have any real book opinions or updates for you, so there we are. You might be like, Melody, why are you even here then? Which, fair, but also verisimilitude? I don't know, so I'm just gonna go on a walk because clearly I need to take myself for a walk. I will see you soon. Hey, we're gonna have to do this quick because I have a friend coming to get me in about 15 minutes to graciously take me to Into the Woods tonight. We're also going to get out some food. We're gonna drop some donations off for earthquake relief, but I'm about 25% of the way into By the Book, which I am really loving so far, and I'm also really loving Love Radio so far. I'm only about 70 pages in out of 310. I just haven't been able to focus as well because of some heightened anxiety levels, which I think are pretty understandable considering everything, so I am anxious to get back to them. when I can focus. I'm hoping tomorrow will be a little bit better. I think I'm really going to benefit from my time with my friend today, but like I said, I'm really enjoying both books, so I'm eager to get back to them and be able to talk to you about them more. But for now, I will see you soon. Sooner for you than for me, but nonetheless, catch you on the other side. Okay, it is now Monday morning, and we are going to call it. Or I am going to call it because it's my call to make. And unfortunately, I only read like 2.5 books, which isn't bad unless you look at the stacks of books that I had pulled to potentially read and realize that my expectations were far exceeding the kind of reality of the situation. So I went ahead yesterday on Super Bowl Sunday and did not watch the Super Bowl and read or finished Love Radio. I really, really enjoyed this. This is a young adult romance. It follows a young girl, Danielle, and a young boy, Prince. Prince is kind of up and coming and is famous in the Detroit scene for being a high school DJ as well as for his love advice. And Danielle dreams of being a famous writer in the vein of some of her favorites, including Toni Morrison and Roxane Gay. There was a bit with this later where they were on a date and he was doing, well, I don't want to spoil the date, but they were doing kind of facts about these writers. And one of the things related to Roxane Gay dealt with Scrabble, and Prince was kind of like explaining it to Danielle as if to show that he had looked up and done research on this thing that she was passionate about. And Danielle was acting as if she did not know that Roxane Gay liked Scrabble. And I find that hard to believe because there is a whole essay on that in Bad Feminist, and Bad Feminist is Gay's most popular work by far. I do not believe that Danielle would not have read that work. So that took me out for just a moment. But there was also this really, really fabulous scene at a roller rink, and it was just so much fun. The energy and atmosphere of a roller rink is kind of unmatched, and the narrative really caught that energy and that vibrancy. And one thing I really appreciated about this book is that while the characters were a little bit mature for their age, they were already very bright. They were attending, I believe, a special school, Mass, which I don't know Detroit, but I did go to a theater program in the Midwest. And so I, of course, met students from Detroit that went to Cass. So I don't know if those were supposed to be the same, but there you go. So these were bright kids that also had like things in their personal life that made them a little bit more mature for their age. And there were times that it was like, yeah, they're a little bit more mature for their age, but it makes sense. And the vibrancy of the community around them, whether it be their family or their friends, I think was really great. I especially loved Prince's friend group and their dynamic and how he would try to give them advice and they would call him out. And it was just a really kind of fun group. And I liked that they were all kind of teenagers trying to navigate these relationships. There were like references to the future and like forever partners in a way that you kind of build these dreams as a teenager, but they were very clearly trying to navigate dating and figure it out. And here we have this couple that is dating. We're watching Prince pursue Danielle, and there was some dynamic to that in that he was actively pursuing her past a no, but it was really exploring those lines of consent, especially because there is a plot line involving some lack of consent in Danielle's background and how that is impacting her present and this relationship. And so the relationship is at the heart of this. It is a romance, but we are watching these teens navigate these really difficult situations, whether it be taking care of a parent that is your only parent that has health complications, as Prince's mother has MS, and they're trying to deal with that, as well as balancing dating and a job and looking to the future and what looking to the future looks like when you are taking on all of this responsibility, as well as Danielle looking to the future and these expectations that she has built for herself really, and what that looks like in terms of kind of grappling with her past, how she has pulled away from all of her friends. I really, really enjoyed the exploration of friendships on both sides here, and we see Danielle, who has kind of pulled away from her main friend group for the past year as she's been kind of battling out some of these things mentally, have to kind of make amends and put in the effort for a real apology, and whether or not her friends accept that. But we also still see them pursuing her to whatever degree when they find an in. Yes, they left her alone for a period, but when they see some kind of change in her, they take that opportunity to be like, we know that something is going on. We need you to tell us what's going on. We would like to be there for you. And I think that it just really balanced modeling healthy teenage friendships with the realities of like the hurt feelings as well. Because if your friend has ignored you for about a year, regardless of the situation, it's gonna hurt to some degree. So I picked this up because I had been seeing great buzz about it online, and I am happy to report that that buzz is correct. I had a great time with this, and I'll be interested to see if it's starting a trend in terms of me being able to pick up some more contemporary YA romance, because I've been kind of outside of that part of YA for a second as I've gotten older, but this was really delightful, and I think it handled both of these characters in a really engaging way. They had flaws and they could be prickly, particularly Danielle, but there was a dynamic to that. She had things that we knew that she was working through. Not that that was used as an excuse, but it kind of gave us an idea of where her head was at. But most importantly, we saw her grappling with where she was just kind of like standing her ground as a young woman versus where she needed to kind of make amends for her words or what was actually hurtful. For instance, they meet, Prince and Danielle first meet, even though Prince has been crushing on her for a while, at the library, and Danielle kind of verbalizes a snap judgment of him that he does not take kindly to, and he kind of calls her in for it, which I also think was super impressive, and she has to kind of sit with that. And while there is that instinct to defensiveness that you can see in her reaction, there is also this ability to look at the situation and realize, hey, I messed up and I need to make amends. And so we are allowing these teens to grow and evolve and figure things out, and I think that there's something really special in that. And I'm gonna read a line that I think speaks to that from toward the end of the book. So if you don't want any potentially emotionally spoilery type things, maybe skip ahead a few minutes. But I read this last night and it really hit me and it made me tear up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. It may have just been that it was late and I was tired too. I don't know, I'm gonna choose to believe that these words really hit me, but it says, "This moment in time when the world was so confusing and we had to grow up, and we grew up in one another." I guess I'm just really pulled to lines about growing up and those kind of transitional moments in our lives. Two of my favorite Taylor Swift lyrics come from folklore and deal with those kinds of same things. There, "Our coming of age has come and gone," which is why I bought that shirt that I have that has that on it. And from August, back when we were still changing for the better, which I bought the pajamas that have a lot of the other lines from that song that I really love, like "For the Hope of It All," like all of that. But I'm really, really drawn to that "back when we were still changing for the better" lyric. I'm trying to figure out if there is a way for me to incorporate that into my concert outfit, but I'm not really crafty and I don't really plan ahead in terms of I have not started planning elaborate concert outfits like we're seeing online. So I don't know, but I love that that I think kind of captures the essence and the spirit here. This idea that these two are kind of discovering themselves and they are a safe place for the other to kind of figure out and vocalize what they want from their future and even from their now. The narrative also kind of explores how Danielle is kind of living in the future or for the future, and Prince is kind of living for the now and is afraid of the future, and how they are both able to bring out the appreciation of the other in the opposite person. So Danielle needs to live a little bit more in the now, and Prince is able to ground her in the now a little bit more. And Prince needs to kind of grapple with some of the realities of the future and kind of give himself permission to think about his dreams, and Danielle gives that to him. So I thought that there was a great balance there. There was a lot going on, and it was just a fun love story at the end of the day on top of that. And then I am about halfway through by the book by Jasmine Guillory. This is again kind of like the Beauty and the Beast retelling in this adult Disney retelling series that's coming out. These romances, well, I don't know. I haven't gotten further, so I don't know if this is a closed door or opposite of closed door romance, so we'll see, but it definitely feels like it's a little bit of a lighter romance, which is weird to say because it is dealing with heavier subjects, and there are still moments of like adult appreciation of someone you are interested in romantically, but I haven't gotten a sense of where it's going to go, which I just find interesting mostly because they've just clearly commissioned these adult romances from these very, very popular contemporary authors, and trying to figure out kind of what their vision for this is. It's probably at the end of the day as much about trying to meet their adult market and not just get money from their adult market, but to recognize that there's a portion of readers that could be served by this series, because regardless of where the heat level ends up, these are clearly adult romances and are dealing with adult themes and speaking to adult circumstances. It's interesting because this is the Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I'm pretty familiar with Beauty and the Beast retellings at this point. I think we all are to a certain extent, but it is one of my favorite kind of story families. I did that whole video about kind of Eros and Psyche, Cupid and Psyche, to Beauty and the Beast, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, that whole story family. And so I'm very much attracted to these stories. And it's interesting because this is kind of like Beauty and the Beast on an overhead laminate where you're just kind of tracing it. And it feels maybe the least like directly referential to Beauty and the Beast. And it's also interesting because this is clearly referencing the Disney movie versus the story family as a whole. So you get little lines that just slip in, like they make reference to Be Our Guest, because you have to reference that line in a Disney retelling or a Disney version of this thing, because those are the story beats that people are going to go in looking for. So it's interesting to see where those are. And here we we have a young publishing professional, Izzy, who is a young Black woman in the industry who thought she was going to be working for this kind of prestigious Black editor, and that job didn't end up panning out. So she has ended up at this other publishing house. We kind of meet her where it's all bright and shiny and new, and she is very optimistic. And then we meet her years down the line where she's kind of edging toward burnout, and this felt like Guillory being able to give due to all of the publishing professionals who have been really overworked, well, forever, but especially since the pandemic. It was a little insider baseball, but in a way that I didn't mind. I don't mind books about books, or books for writers, or books for readers, but it's also this thing like in the theater, and I think I've talked about this before, not that I expect you guys to have been around for it. As a dramaturg, I really balk at this point against theater for theater people, or where it's like set in the theater and it's clear that you need some kind of industry knowledge or insider knowledge about theater to appreciate the art, because then it feels like a very insular thing. And theater already struggles with gaining new audiences and being seen as kind of elitist because of like the barriers of entry. And I think that there are a lot of theater artists and theater companies that are attempting to come at those barriers from different angles, but nonetheless. So I think that there is a little bit less of that in terms of books, because books are a little bit more accessible to more people. They're not accessible to everyone. We know that. There are the barriers of literacy and accessibility, but nonetheless, still sometimes books about books, or that are clearly kind of pulling on that emotional connection to reading, they usually either really, really work for me or really, really don't, because if they don't, it feels like they're relying too much on that feeling and there's not really enough world creation or development, and it just doesn't feel true. It feels like it's trying to capitalize on this love and not do the kind of rest of the work of building the world and the characters and the voice and whatnot. Here, I'm falling somewhere in the middle so far. I'm enjoying myself. I like Guillory's work. We're following this publishing professional who is at this remote house in California with this former child star who she's trying to get a manuscript out of. He's owed them a memoir for a while and hasn't delivered, and she's been sending emails into the void, and she's finally met him, and now she's staying here trying to get this memoir out of him and help him open up in this way. And so there are definitely the echoes of Beauty and the Beast, but it doesn't feel as directly referential as some other retellings, which I find interesting mostly because so many retellings are trying to recreate the thing or put a new spin on it and end up following beats directly. And here I find Guillory is playing a little bit more. She's taking a little bit more freedom and exploring what she can do within the kind of overarching structure, but where she can play with some of these moments. So the moments are still there, but they're not directly transposed to the original. They're clearly trying to update the circumstances to kind of fit within the modern world and feel like a true contemporary romance. And that's where it makes looking for some of the more directly referential pieces to the Disney movie more important, or feel more important, because it feels like those are the more specific call-outs or moments that reference the original material. So I'm just finding it interesting as much as anything to see how this author, whose work I'm already familiar with to some level, I am definitely not caught up on all of her books, but seeing how she's playing with this world and these characters and what she's building. And so far, I think it's a lot of fun. Now, where I've said that usually I either really, really like it or really, really don't with something like this is kind of the exception to the rule, and that I'm kind of falling somewhere in the middle. I'm just enjoying myself. I think we've put so much pressure on having extreme reactions to things in a way that I think we forget sometimes you can just enjoy a thing. So I'm gonna just enjoy a thing. I will probably attempt to get out of this apartment today and go work somewhere else, like I said I was gonna do this entire video. So I don't know. Again, I ended up reading 2.5 books. I didn't take you guys with me to do nearly as much as I anticipated, nor did I do nearly as much as I anticipated. So we'll see. This was clearly a first outing, and we'll see if we're interested in a second. But if you've made it this far, hey, thanks. So thanks for hanging out with me. Read something good, like and subscribe if you feel like it, and yeah,